Hello, this is part two of my video explainer on getting my French driver's license as a non-French speaking person living and working in France. So the first part, the other video that I did was around my process to actually, my background in terms of driving experience, my process in getting the actual theory test done and liaising with the driving school, and now um, and the sort of initial lessons that I did, and now it's the sort of second part, which is the conduite supervisée, accompagnée, and the actual exams. So one thing that I will say that I would really invite you to do if you've never driven on a motorway or an autoroute, is to ask your driving instructor to do that with you. It was a real help for me. I had never driven on a motorway before because, again, where my license is issued, we don't have motorways. So it was really, really great. I don't think they typically take learner drivers on the motorway, but because we had, you know, built quite a few, built quite a bit of confidence, we did lots of practice drives. It was really helpful to do that, and it was great. It was really, really insightful. It helped me feel much more confident. And basically over the month, so that was sort of mid-July that I moved into accompanied driving. I just racked up lots of mileage, lots of experience, built up my confidence, went driving in the countryside, in towns, did the autoroute a few times. That was really super useful. We have a small child, and I had a lot of anxiety about driving with my child in the car. Um, but actually getting more exposure to that was really helpful in assuaging some of those concerns and feeling more and more confident in being able to manage. And then around late August, so after the sort of vacances period, the holiday period, because we are in France, of course, I had another 1 hour quick assessment with my instructor to see if I was test ready. And she was like, yep, you're ready to go. She booked me in for a test in late September. So we continued business as usual. Um, I basically did maybe one or two additional driving lessons with her before the test, but it was pretty. I was pretty confident I was passing all of the tests that we did. Sort of um, yeah, sample tests, and then it was test day. So my test was booked in late September on the afternoon, and I had about a month of notice in terms of when the test was booked. I was one of three people that were going to be doing the test that my instructor had been teaching and that she was going to take to for their test. So basically, the day went like this. At 8 a.m., we had a rendezvous at the driving school. And the three of us took turns driving in the morning. So I drove first, and then the others drove after. Um, but basically, there was an order of who was taking the test first. So I was going to take the test first, then one of a younger woman, and then a gentleman. Um, and the tests were like the drives were really good. So we were all driving really well in town. Um, we were driving under test conditions, under, on known test routes, and we all drove well. A few, mistakes because it's hard to have a perfect drive, but nothing catastrophic. And because it was test conditions, we had to present our ID card to our examiner, who was our teacher. And it got interesting at that point. So I had told my instructor when my test was booked, so a month before in late August, I said, listen, my titre de séjour card is no longer going to be valid on the day of the test. I've already applied to renew it. I have the proof of the renewal and that my application's fine. Um, but I just need to get the go ahead from the préfecture to go and collect my new card. She said, that's fine as long as you've got the proof of that you've submitted the thing and that it's been accepted. She said it's fine. She checked with her colleagues, all was good. It was not good. So when I presented her with my ID as part of the mock test, she checked with the owner of the school, and the owner of the school was like, no, it needs to be a valid ID. She then actually had the number of the examiner who was going to be doing the exam later on that day and asked him, and he said, no, it needs to be valid. So after a morning of quite a bit of adrenaline, and driving, it was decided that I was not going to be taking my test on that day because of my ID card, but instead it would be rebooked for the following week because they had a slot then, and I already had a slot at the préfecture for like the day after to go and get my new titre de séjour card. So I was like, fine, I'll have my card by then. We can do the test. So that was all fine, fine. Great, no problem. I still had to go to the test center and basically present my ID card to show that my ID was invalid. It was no longer, it had expired. And then that way I could be sent home and rebooked. So I was in the clear. So no test for me that day. We're set. We continued on our merry way. We had lunch. Um, the instructor accounts for how many kilometers, like the current kilometer reading, because the kilometer reading indicates which questions. They ask you three questions. during the actual practical test, similar to the UK, sort of internal exterior verification, like show me how to honk the horn, or show me that all of the clignotant, that all of the indicators are working, that kind of thing. So she actually basically gave us, she's like, okay, so you're going to be going at this, you're going to be going first. This is more or less which questions you're going to get. And it helped us sort of zoom in a bit more on the questions for us to focus on, even though I wasn't going to be doing my exam. I was chilling. I was kind of like, the other two lesson were super anxious. This was the first time for one of them doing their exam, and I think this was the fifth time trying to get the test for one of the others. So yeah, anyway, long story short is we get to the exam center, we present our IDs. Now, I keep my titre de séjour in my passport, which is actually like a no-no. You shouldn't do that. You should keep them in separate spaces. But then, lo and behold, because my passport's there and because my passport's still valid, it's decided that I can do my test. Because what you actually need is you need valid ID. Um, so I was then told, "Oh, great, you can do your test now." And I nearly like projectile vomited with just an anxiety, adrenaline like tsunami. I was completely. Long story short, the exam was a bust. I'm not a mentally flexible person to deal with sudden change like that, and it was just too much anxiety and nervousness to metabolize in one go. I just couldn't. Um, So yeah, so I failed my first test. The first half was actually fine. I mean, I was completely like in shock and nervous. He made quite a lot of quite passive aggressive sort of suggestions for me to improve on, but I was just like I need to just get my head down and drive safely and come out of this alive. I was in survival mode that I just didn't take on board what he said, and he got really annoyed, which is understandable, right? If someone's trying to help you out and giving you suggestions on ways you can improve to pass and you just ignore them, that's a bit annoying. Um, so I was driving too slowly. I was just overly cautious. It was not good. It was not good. I did my maneuver, which was a reverse Bay Park. So you have the on the day of the test you do the three questions right after you've done your maneuver. So the maneuver is basically a reverse maneuver. So it's either a parallel park, créneau, reverse Bay Park, so bataille arrière, reverse angled Bay parking, so en épi, reverse in a straight line, so next to sort of curb straight line, or front bay park, so bataille avant, and then you reverse back. So the maneuver was in a supermarket parking lot that I go to often. I answered my three questions, no problem. So the three questions are internal, external verification, road safety, and then first aid. So those are the three sort of sections of the questions. No problem. Um, and then we continued, and I basically just really messed up my speed. I was going too slow, and then I sped up at the wrong time. He had to intervene. And what's ironic is that I had actually done that exact route that morning when we were doing the practice drives with the instructor and the other students. So it was just a complete shame, basically complete bust that I had failed. Um, yeah. He was annoyed. I was like borderline disassociated and just my instructor was obviously really gutted. He was quite, I mean, my French is good, but it's not like perfect. So there were definitely some things that he was saying that I was like, oh, I don't think that's very professional or polite thing to say. I think he was just getting really annoyed. Um, and she did give him a good talking to after that because his tone was just not very polite. It was not very friendly. And yeah, I mean, thankfully, I kind of tuned him out because I was so stressed that I didn't internalize it too much. But I was just scared. I was in shock, and my driving reflected that. So I viewed failed beautifully. Um, it was completely just catastrophe. I got my results the next day, and I got 14 points out of 31. So just bad. I was really gutted. Mostly gutted that I just didn't advocate for myself because if I had asked to go second and give myself maybe half an hour to like center and breathe, then maybe it would have been a different outcome. Anyway, I did a little audit later in the day. My partner was super supportive. I sent an email to my driving school, and then the next day I was back in the driver's seats, back on the proverbial horse, and I continued. I redid my test route. So this is, I think, important if you do fail your driving test for whatever reason, get back in the car and redo the test route. Redo the test route. Notice in yourself that you can do it. And it was actually really like healing for me to do that test route again and to do it perfectly fine with no issues. Um, and then I got booked another for another test. So if you fail your first test, you have to wait a month. So I got booked for another test on the 27th of October, but alas, I was on holiday, so I wasn't able to. be there for that test. And then I had to wait another 2 months. So my driving school then booked me for a new test on January 17th, which was just a few days ago. So, so that was all fine. I was actually really, when I got that email, I was so excited. I was like, oh, yes, finally, I finally get to do my test. And a part of me wanted to sort of prove to the driving instructor and myself that I wasn't a scaredy cat driver, that I did, that I am a competent driver. And yeah, so basically, I had a lesson so my test was on the Friday morning. I had a lesson on the Wednesday afternoon, and my driving school had changed cars. And as part of in that process in that timeline, so they had we were driving a Peugeot initially, and now we were driving an Audi. So I got to learn the new car, and luckily I had been driving in our car and other cars, so I'm relatively adaptable. I drove, did fine. A couple of just small bad like nitpicking kind of habits, like driving with one hand on the shift and just not checking my mirrors enough. Anyway. I was being a little bit too confident on roundabouts. But it was good. It was really, really helpful to have had that drive. And then I had another lesson the next day, just again, another lesson, a couple of maneuvers, like insertion and like roundabouts, everything was fine. Feeling focused, feeling good. I had my test on the 17th. Again, 8 a.m., rendezvous at the school, same process. This time, though, my test was scheduled for 10 a.m., which was honestly a really good time. It's not enough time to let all of that anxiety build up. It was past rush hour. It was also a cold day, so there weren't lots of pedestrians or cyclists on. I had my ID with me. Great. Set. The other student actually went first this time, and then I had half an hour to just take myself for a little walk, move some of that energy in my body, listen to some affirmations and to some calming music. I actually got really excited for the test, like I'm genuinely excited to do the test. Imagining riding back with my instructor, laughing, and imagining taking our kid to school on Monday morning by myself and picking up friends from the airport. Anyway, you get the gist. I was in a pretty good headspace, comparatively. And then bish bash bosh, we did the route. Bit in town, bits outside of town. I did my maneuver, which was a bataille avant, which is the front bay park, which is the easiest option. I was like, okay. I was a bit unsure that that's what he wanted. He was almost friendly with me. He was really, really like it was the same person, the same examiner, but he was really fine. He made a couple of suggestions. I made adjustments instantly, which he appreciated. And then 25 minutes later, I was back. It was really quick. There weren't any issues. I sort of in with my instructor kind of did a bit of a debrief afterwards. I was like, listen, I think I probably got a 27, 28 out of 31. She said, yeah, she's like, I think you're probably right. She said, it's in the bag. He was happy with your drive. They do a debrief with the instructor after the exam. He said he was happy with your drive. He was happy with your maîtrise de la voiture, how your sense of sort of managing and moving with the car. And you'll get your email tomorrow. So the next day, 9:09. I love myself that sort of duplicate number. I got the email, passed. 27 and a half out of 31. So I had said between 27 and 28. I got 27 and a half. And just, yeah, super happy. I slapped on my red A. You can get these from Amazon, by the way. You can get either stickers, but I actually got some magnet ones. It's a pack of two. So you get two of the red A's for when you do pass, and you get two of the conduite supervisée in case you have more than one car. And then off we went. So that was my process of driving lessons and the actual driving test. And then I'll just do a really quick third video around what happens after you have your license. Again, just to keep these short and snappy.